The first one I'm doing the power distance index or PDI. This dimension measures pretty much how a single citizen is expecting or accepting of an unequal distribution of power. And so the countries that have a high factor of PDI, like Malaysia or Mexico, they'll have a more like hierarchy society where like you can see who's above who. But in countries such as Denmark and New Zealand, who prefer an egalitarian relationship, they'll have more of like a flat structure when it comes to them. The second degree I'm doing is individualism versus collectivism. This dimension pretty much reflects how individuals are integrated into groups. In more individualist societies such as the United States, we emphasize more of personal stuff, like personal goals and personal achievement. Whereas in countries such as China, where they're more of collectivists, they are prioritize group goals and interdependence or like relying on one another. For my third degree, I'm doing masculinity versus femininity. This dimension indicates the distribution of roles between genders. Um, in cultures such as Japan, which are very masculine, they value competitiveness, assertiveness, and measurable success over other things. Whereas um, one of the more feminine cultures, being Sweden, they would emphasize more of care, cooperation, or quality of life. The last degree that I've decided to do is the uncertainty avoidance means. This dimension pretty much just measures a society's tolerance for uncertainty. In high uncertainty cultures like Portugal or Greece, they prefer structured conditions, clear rules, like you know what you're doing. But in low uncertainty avoidance cultures, such as surprisingly enough Jamaica, they are way more open to the change. Alright, so for my next part, I'll be talking about context culture. To start off this topic, we need to talk about what is context culture to begin with. It's a culture's affinity to context clues in communication. It's like how direct are you? Are you gonna go out and say stuff? Or are you wanting people to read between the lines to figure out what you're really saying? The best way that we've seen to deal with this is just to learn to adjust to different other cultures, how like they deal with context and how you adopt to a low context for new interactions. It's like tone be more direct when you're talking to new people because you don't know what their context is. How does each person has their own context level? Well, a lot of people, they'll it's very significantly between person and person how direct or indirect they are in communication. My personal experience in dealing with contextual culture, I'm going to talk about my ex-girlfriend that we can call Kat for today. Her father was from Pakistan and her mother was Russian, which are very different worldviews than we have here in the United States. Now, Kat growing up, she learned both of those cultures very well and how context is used in both of those cultures. Now, with my American culture, it was kind of a contextual culture shock, you could say, dating her because I had to learn how she views context and how she uses it because communication is a two-way road. For my article from MIT, I chose to do what we can't talk about in school. Some things I drew from this is that certain topics are slippery and very hard to discuss. And the reasons for this is that some topics such as racism, they can cause feelings of fear in some affected groups. Um, and also, a lot of people are super insecure. And so bringing up stuff that could cause the insecurity is a bad thing because it can make them act out and start to change and be different than how they normally would. And also, a lot of people see weaknesses in themselves, and they really hate when people talk about those certain weaknesses because it kind of draws them out. And going back to security, it hurts their ego, their figure.